Hey everybody, I'm Rafael Sangili, host of Tripod, Digital's podcast. On today's podcast, we cover creative writing, right? So like how to tell a story, but still make it effective marketing. I'm going to interview one of our best writers, and just one of the best writers. I've actually just reading his stuff is amazing. I love Ash's writing, and just he's a cool dude in general. If you guys are going to get a chance to meet him a little bit today and understand just kind of why we like having him around, he's an interesting cat, does a lot of really cool stuff for our clients, and he's just a fascinating guy to talk to just in general. So enjoy the podcast. Let's get right into it. So Ash, thanks for joining us today. Do you want to give us a little background maybe on yourself and just kind of how you got started in the field of writing? Is that something you knew as a little kid? You're like, hey, I'm going to be a writer, like at a very young age?
Actually, it was one of my professors when I was in college. I was taking just a basic English course, just fulfilling my requirements to get my degree, and handed in just an essay that didn't really, I hadn't put my heart and soul into it or anything. It was just, I was writing an assignment. And when I got it back, it was all marked up, just red ink everywhere all over it, but it was all praise. And it was the first time in my life anybody had told me, hey, you know how to write. And it kind of put it on my radar that, oh, wow, I didn't realize this was something I was able to do, better than a lot of people are able to do it. So it was really from that point on that I started to get interested in it. And then I really started to get into, as weird as this sounds, even research papers in college. I loved,
wow.
I just, once I got excited about it, I loved the process of building out any kind of story, anything that I was making the case for on paper. So,
that's awesome. And then so did you start immediately kind of just getting into more of the business writing, or did you start with more like the nonfiction or the fiction kind of like, storytelling kind of writing?
I started writing fiction then, off and on, not seriously and not with enough consistency to really be getting better at it, but for fun. And I was an avid reader, so I was continuing to read and write here and there, just kind of when I felt like inspiration struck me. But it was while I was at my last non-writing desk job that I decided I wanted to get more serious about writing. And at that time I was an analyst, so I spent all day in Excel spreadsheets. But I launched my own website and started writing once a week there and publishing a short horror story once a week there. And the commitment I made to myself was, even if it was really short, I was going to write a story a week. And that was when I started kind of learning more just from doing it about the process of writing. And then from there, when my time at that company came to an end, I decided to try freelance writing. And that's what I did for several years before I came here.
Man, that's amazing. And I can tell how you've been able to weave some cool stories, because we're going to pull up some of the sites that Ash has done for us just to give examples. But just the way that you're able to kind of really, weave in a little bit of each of our clients' personality, but still make it. I mean, you write horror stories, but some of the stuff that, I don't know if that's a good analogy, but some of our clients, their stuff is really light and fun and totally different, I'm sure, than your regular writing style. Is that hard to like be able to switch kind of styles on a dime depending on which client you're working with, or is that something that you've been able to just kind of comes natural, easy?
To me, that's part of the fun of it. The first fiction writing that I did consistently was all flash fiction, and it was all based on prompts. So I would go out, and there's a bunch of websites out there where you can find flash fiction prompts, and they'll be usually just random elements, like include these 3 words in a story that's at least 500 words long, or the first line of the story needs to be this line, and it needs to include these elements. And so the fiction that I was writing, there was always criteria that I had to meet. This was always kind of like putting a puzzle together. And that's kind of what I do with the writing for our clients, is I pull up the information we have on each client, like literally before each piece. Even if I'm familiar with it, I'll go back and I'll look at what their interests are, what their theme is, what their personality is, and that's my prompt. And that's the puzzle that I'm then trying to put together. Then I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I start this with a story that fits what they're into and their voice and their tone? And then how do I tie that in a way that makes sense to what they have to offer to their clients? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I do.
No, that's amazing. And then there's another piece of that too, which is we have to start to make it actually convert traffic. So when people jump on the site, so you got to tell a story, right? Because we've seen a lot of sites where people go on crazy tangents, right?
Yeah.
So we'll go on a page and it'll be like, all of this massive content that either is A, way too technical, or B, way too out in left field where you don't know what these guys do, right?
Yeah.
So, what are, maybe we can start there is what are some tips that you'd give somebody that's watching this at home, looking at their website content and just scratching their head thinking, man, I don't know how to fix this. Like, what would you say is some of the big mistakes or big things that people kind of jump into when they're starting to write for their sites or starting to write copy?
I would say especially with technical stuff, the biggest mistake that I come across frequently is people want to make it clear that they know the technology, but in an effort to make that clear, oftentimes the copy is just too complicated. Simple is typically what draws readers in. It's what keeps people reading. That's everything from short words, short sentences, and short paragraphs to sticking to the most basic cornerstone concepts instead of trying to delve into too much of the technical stuff. Now, that varies, of course. So if I'm writing about something that is more technical by nature, then I'm probably going to go a little bit more technical with it. But I don't ever want it to be so complicated that it doesn't feel relatable. Right. I want to make sure that I'm writing kind of, at the level that people are typically reading at when they're online and browsing websites, even when they're shopping.
So what would you say that is? If you had you keep it like at a 10th grade level? I've heard conflicting things of 9th grade level, 5th grade level. I have no idea.
It'll actually make you laugh if I tell you what reading level I try to write to. My target is 3rd to 7th grade.
That makes a lot of sense. It's right in my window. That's
it's
right where I'm just.
Most adults read at a 7th grade reading level when they're reading for comfort and for pleasure.
Sure.
I should say, we're capable of understanding at a much higher level, but most of us, if we're going to read something and just kind of take it easy, we're looking for something at about a 7th grade reading level. And there's this awesome website called Hemingway.com. You can take your copy, cut and paste it, just drop it into that website, and it will tell you what reading level that copy is at. So every time I finish a piece, I drop it into the Hemingway editor and just let it tell me if it's in my target zone. If it's below 3rd grade, then I think it's probably too simple. If it's above 7th grade, then I think it's probably a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. And I try and find places to shorten sentences and make it read a little easier.
There's a political joke in here somewhere, but I'm just going to leave it where it's at. No, but some of our, I think, especially trying to find out what's the right. It's just got to be simple and readable. People jump on a website on their phone sometimes, wherever they're at. They got to be able to jump on it, right? So think Goosebumps. If you guys are listening at home, Goosebumps level of writing, right? So just that it still has a cohesive story. I don't know if Goosebumps is probably the right book to use. But
hey, it works.
Whatever.
Or Harry Potter.
Potter.
Anything like that.
There we go, Harry Potter.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm old because I went with Goosebumps instead of Harry Potter. It's before my age. All right, so Ash, give me a little background on just kind of maybe some actually we can do. Aaron, pull up the Intelligent IT site. I want to show. This is a really cool site that kind of shows what we're talking about earlier, where we weaved in the theme with just kind of really cool writing and short. I think little, really short windows that we have to work with. You're able to put together some really cool stuff. So the theme for this website, for those of you listening at home, was relentless pursuit of Zen. Mm-hmm. So for those of you guys that don't know Manny, he's one of our clients. He's in New York. He's a super interesting guy, very much into Buddhism, and that's his thing now. But he's also very New York, where he's got places to go and things to do. So a little bit of a conflicting style in terms of his energy output and his kind of mindset, where it's very chill and kind of tranquil, right?
Yeah.
So maybe give me a little background as to how you took that theme and then started just kind of working that into the content that we see here.
Yeah, Manny's one of my favorite clients to write for, and a lot of it's because of the theme and because of the mashing together of those two. Like you were talking about, kind of those two concepts that don't seem like they would fit together. Mm-hmm. The energy of New York combined with kind of sort of a Zen, peace, harmony kind of thing. So the way I approach all of Manny's stuff, if you look at his blog, if you look at the white papers I've written for him, every single one of them starts with some piece of folklore or some reference to mythology. I've used Japanese folklore several times. I've used Norse mythology, Greek and Roman mythology. All of them start in a very Zen kind of place. Looking at stories that kind of encapsulate a moral, a message, some information about how to live life, and then I tie that into whatever the topic we're addressing is. So I take that. From there, I'll go into whatever the technical solution we're talking about is. So a good example, the most recent one I wrote started with the story of Prometheus. Mm-hmm. So Zeus was upset with mankind and stole fire or hid fire from mankind. And Prometheus thought that wasn't fair. So he stole fire back from Zeus.
Yeah.
And so you've got two of the main characters in this myth stealing from each other. And from there, I started talking about how, neither character really appreciated being stolen from. Nobody likes being stolen from. And that's why cybersecurity is so important. You're not just dealing with your own security, you're dealing with your client's security. And they don't want to have stuff stolen from them. You don't want to have stuff stolen from you. So that was my lead in to start talking about some of the core elements of cybersecurity. But everything starts that way. It all starts with lore.
That's amazing, man. That's very interesting. I mean, I have, again, something that I would never be able to put together, pulling in Zeus and Prometheus into a cybersecurity blog or a post. That's impressive, my friend.
It's just
that's
fun.
Pretty badass.
It's what makes the writing fun for me because the topics are pretty similar.
Right.
Everyone's going to have their own way that they offer something like cybersecurity, but the core concepts of what makes for good cybersecurity are pretty universal. So the way to make things stand out for me is in telling the stories.
See, that's interesting. I mean, because most of our clients are selling the same stuff, right? So if you're in IT, there's only so many backup solutions that exist out there, right? There's only so many, cybersecurity, solutions that exist, managed services, and your IT services are pretty much all the same. So like the clients, it's Pepsi and Coke, right?
Yeah.
They really don't know, right? So how do you take something that's so kind of just a universal solution set that's basically you're working like you walk into a restaurant and you see the same menu, but you have to make that menu look totally different from every other menu that's out there.
Yeah.
It's the same menu, but it's got to sound and look totally different, right?
Yep.
So what's your process for taking something like that? Like how do you, when you're starting to break it down, do you start by just maybe taking each solution and then, pulling out specific bullet points you want to highlight? Or how do you tie it back into also like the client's tone so you can authentically get their tone out and how they present that solution?
I start kind of with two things are my foundation. And the first is there anything unique about how this client offers this solution? So something like cybersecurity, like I was saying, the core concept, the same kind of universal. But every client we have has their own philosophy of what's important about cybersecurity. And some of them have specific things that they emphasize, that specific pieces of their cybersecurity offering that maybe are really important for them, but not as important for some of our other clients. So I look first at, okay, is there something that is really important for this client that they've talked about, that they got passionate about when we were going through our onboarding meetings? Is there something that I can tell is really the core of this concept for them? Because that's going to be true and authentic to their message. And then I combine that with their tone. So then I start asking myself questions about, okay, their personality. How can I tell the story of this solution the way they offer it in a way that matches their personality and who they are? So that's how we end up with weird things like Prometheus and Zeus and cybersecurity for Manny, because I know what's important about cybersecurity for Manny, but I also know that he really likes all these Zen concepts, including stories that have meaning and depth. And so that's how I write for him. That's kind of how I build that out.
Man, that's amazing. And then so when you're writing stuff out like this, do you also have like is there certain tricks or things? That tricks is probably a bad way to put it, but
no,
is there techniques or maybe tips or things that you would do to sprinkle in like, hey, I know that in like the second paragraph, I have to do this little thing to keep conversion rates high. Like as you're writing, are there little things that you have to kind of hide in the story to keep people kind of moving along from a marketing or sales perspective?
Absolutely, yeah. There's several like best practices kind of things to do if you're writing marketing copy. So for SEO purposes, you want to make sure you know what your keyword is in anything that you're writing, and make sure that you sprinkle the keyword in throughout. But it can't sound awkward or it'll stand out. So if I'm writing about cybersecurity, I have to say the word cybersecurity a bunch, but it can't sound like it's forced. So that's on my mind the whole time I'm writing it, is I need to make sure that I say that actual word, or sometimes the keyword is a phrase, but whatever the keyword is, I got to make sure I fit it in there several times. I also want to link internally to other pages on that client's site as often as I can. So if I'm writing about cybersecurity and I happen to mention backup solutions, well, I know I wrote another blog for Manny just a few weeks ago about backup, so I'm going to link to that blog. I'm going to link to anything else that is on Manny's site that's about similar things to what I'm writing about in this piece, so that I've got plenty of internal linking. I also want plenty of external linking. So I get to go on a research scavenger hunt and try and find, the best solid research out there I can find, and make sure that I'm referencing it plenty, so I've got plenty of external links as well. And all of that has to kind of fit into the copy in a way that flows.
Right. That makes sense, and I can tell it by just if you guys go to intelligentnyc.com. Is it Intelligent IT NYC?
Intelligent IT NYC, I think.
NYC.com. And you guys can check out just some of Ash's writing and how he was able to weave all these things in there. I mean, it's incredible. Right? I remember what you're able to do for us. You're also our writer, too, for some of our stuff at Try Digital, right? So if you guys like to copy at our website, and maybe go through the process of because it's completely different than writing for, I think, some of our clients, right?
It is.
What do you think is one of the things maybe that makes it maybe different to write for us? I don't want to say hard, but makes it maybe a little bit more challenging writing for us than maybe for some of our clients. Or is it? I don't know. Maybe it's way easier. I don't know.
Well, psychologically it's challenging just because I'm representing all of the people I work around every time I write something for us. So it's always on my mind that,
people just giving you a bunch of looks. You better get this right, man.
I've got
start writing about me.
30 some odd coworkers who I'm speaking for all of us every time I start to write something for Try Digital. So that's on my mind. But the tone is pretty different too. I mean, we're a very fun-loving company, and some of our clients are as well. But our tone is super casual, sometimes even mildly irreverent. Makes this a lot of fun to write for, but it is a different tone from what I'm using for most of our clients. Now, if we get a client who wants a similar tone, and we have a couple. Right. Who want kind of a more lighthearted, maybe even sometimes mildly sarcastic tone.
Sure.
We can do that. But most of our clients aren't necessarily looking for that. So I have to kind of switch gears tone-wise a little bit, and that's a little bit different. And then the stuff that I'm writing about is different because I'm not writing about IT solutions. I'm writing more about marketing. So.
And just kind of our just general culture stuff too, right? I think a little bit. So what do you think in terms of when you're dealing with people that are going out there and writing, and I think sometimes when people are looking at their writing, I think they play it way too safe, right? Sometimes people are just ultra conservative with the way that they write, afraid they're going to piss somebody off or they're going to land their site, someone's not going to like it. One of the rules we have here is look, if your marketing is not offending somebody, it's probably bad, right? So the copy, that's the reason. The reality is, no matter how you write, no matter how safe you play it, there's going to be somebody's going to jump on and be this is gross, right? But there's going to be somebody who might love it.
Yeah.
And you might as well just make it about yourself, right? You might as well just write as you would for, for anybody else that, if you're talking to a friend or just, talking to one of your clients and trying to keep it, as authentic as possible from that perspective, right? I mean, if you've seen a lot of copy as you're taking our clients in, what are some of the common denominators that you've seen where you're just man, I think that if, this is probably an area that needs to get worked on or something they should address from a writing perspective?
Well, I think what you just mentioned is a big one. A lot of times people play it safer than they need to, which is a shame. And I completely agree with you. I think that being authentic in your writing is more important than anything else. My goal when I write on behalf of clients, which is challenging sometimes, is to make their copy sound like when someone reads it, and then has a conversation with that business owner, I want them to feel like they were talking to the same person both times. I want it to feel like my copy reads the way they talk, so that it doesn't feel like it's misrepresenting them. And so if people are writing for themselves, I would say write the way you talk.
Right.
So if what you would say about cybersecurity is, man, it sucks when someone hacks into your network. Well, then write that.
Right.
That's perfectly fine. And it can be casual if you're casual. If you tend to have more of a buttoned up style, maybe the people that you're marketing to are suits and you're frequently in front of, people who kind of expect a more executive tone, well, then write that way.
If you only speak in Shakespearean, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're some kind of thespian, that's,
whatever's authentic for you,
right.
Do that. And if it's a little bit edgy, that's okay, because people are going to find that out when they have a conversation with you anyway.
Exactly. I think that's really what it's about, is trying to find a cultural fit between, the people that that are approaching your site or your prospective clients, and then other stuff, right? When we talk about it's not so much about writing about the solution of technology. It's more about writing about the people in your company, what you guys are passionate about, the culture, trying to get that out as much as possible, because we can market that pretty easy, and then we can talk about the solutions, because for the most part, getting super deep and technical with your solutions, most clients don't care.
Yeah, most of the time they don't. I mean, there are outliers, but for the most part, no. And if you're writing about the things that are important to you, things that you enjoy, like one of our clients, Hill Country, they're big gamers. So a lot of the stuff I write for them has to do with gaming. That's where a lot of the intros for them are. But that's fine, because that's something that they're likely to talk to their prospective clients about.
Right.
It's what they like.
Sure.
So it just makes sense to make those connections from the copy on.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, man. I want to get into some of your writing a little bit, some of your personal stuff, and how that maybe weaves into kind of some of what we're doing here, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Right? So
it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah, but let's pull up your site. If you guys want to check out Ash's writing and some of his personal stuff, which is great, by the way, you can go to, what's the website? Is it armartin.com?
It's armartinwriter.
armartinwriter.com. Mm-hmm. And here's some of the stuff he has here. So give me a little breakdown of this site. What are we seeing here? Is this
That looks like the About page, or that may be I think that's the About page, or that may be about the freelance.
Where can people find some of your maybe some of your stories,
the fiction and stuff off to the side, where it says series and featured stories. Those are some of my favorites. The series are just short stories that chain off of each other, and then the featured stories are just some of my favorite short stories that are published on the site. But I typically, I haven't done it lately because I'm also in a grad school program, because I like to not bite off too much, clearly.
Yeah. Plenty of time. Plenty of time is what it's telling me. Yeah.
But what I try to do normally, and I haven't done as good a job of it lately, is I try to publish one short story a week. Okay. So for about 5.5, 6 years, that's what I did. I published one short story a week. So there's a ton of fiction on the site.
Are they all scary stories?
There's a lot of horror in there. I do veer from horror from time to time. It's not strictly horror. It's not all horror.
Yeah.
But there's a good bit of horror mixed into the site. That's one of my favorite genres to write in. What's
been your favorite, or of your stories have you written that if you want to point people to, hey, check this story out, it's pretty cool?
My very favorite, one of my very favorites is probably Back in Black, which is
AC/DC horror, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a very clear link to the song there, but I don't want to give any spoilers about it. But it's an intersection of folklore kind of stuff, and Black Friday.
Black Friday,
yeah.
Black Friday's coming up. That scares the shit out of me every time.
So it's a fun story. It's an interesting one. That one's really good. Blood and Frosting was actually my first story that got published. And it's about a zombie outbreak at a children's birthday party.
Well, okay.
So it's kind of fun.
Excellent.
It's weirdly lighthearted, but it is kind of fun.
That sounds like a family story for everyone.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds like something your whole family can get behind. That's amazing, man. Dude, this is really cool stuff. So, and guys, maybe you can point people to the people at home if they're listening and they want some resources and they want some references, maybe stuff that influenced your writing.
Sure.
What are some good books they can go check out that'll help them influence, their writing style, maybe find their voice, and maybe some of the books that also talk about just like, how to develop good copy, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, for writing in general, this would be applicable to fiction and nonfiction. My two favorite books are On Writing by Stephen King. Phenomenal book. King does a really good job of breaking down what makes for good story specifically, but he also addresses things like how important grammar is. And you wouldn't expect him to necessarily be as big into grammar as he is, but he's a former English teacher, so he's pretty big on grammar. Another really good book about the writing process is Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. Really entertaining read, sometimes deep, really good information about how to write. For marketing specific copy, one of my favorite books that I've read recently is a book called Fascinate, which breaks down kind of the overall strategy to marketing and how you can create fascination in your audience and what it takes to build your brand according to the kind of fascination you want to create. So all three of those books I would recommend highly.
Awesome, man. Great. I'll throw, surprisingly, I've read some books too.
Well, yeah.
There's one book that I would recommend out there. I know you guys at home probably don't think I know how to read, but I do. There's a book out there called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And
that's on my list. I haven't read it yet.
It is a fantastic book, and it's a short book, which worked out well for me.
Yeah.
So it's a book that's like 120 pages, something like that, but it's really good because I know for instance, for myself, I have a blog and stuff I write at home and different things, but there's when I find like a lot of, like, I come up with something like excuses all the time, like why I can't write, or, well, you don't have time to do this right now. And I think in a lot of ways in our life, we have all kinds of issues that we put in our way, in our own way, little resistance issues, and he puts a face to the resistance that gets in the way of writing and gets in the way of the creative process. So for any writer at home, or if any of you guys just need a book to help you get off your butt and actually get started and do that thing that you know you've been wanting to do, definitely check out this book, The War of Art. The audiobook is funny. It's great too. Whoever does the voiceover for the book, it sounds like your grandfather, like, just telling you to get off your ass, which is perfect. Like it's like your grandfather saying, just stop that resistance, get out there and whatever, mow the lawn or whatever you're supposed to do, right? That's
funny.
And it's funny because I almost hear my grandfather in his Cuban, just angry accent in my voice, like, "Oh, hey, go start writing right now." So, anyways, guys. Man, Ash, again, thank you so much for joining us today. People want to follow you on social media. They can get from all your stuff from your site?
Yeah, it's all in the upper right-hand corner of my website are all the links for like my Facebook page, Twitter account, all that good stuff. So, yeah.
Cool. If you guys want to reach out to Ash and just ask him any questions on writing, ask any questions us about copy. He's a great resource. Like I said, super cool dude, very fascinating. So you can talk to him about horror stories. You can talk to him about business writing. He's also a business coach. Yep. For those of you guys that are out there and need help with your businesses, Ash is a true Renaissance man. So, all right. Thank you very much, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
It was fun.
I want to have you come back again, man. That'd be great.
Absolutely, anytime.
Excellent. So, and guys, everybody at home, thank you so much for watching the podcast. And if you have any suggestions, ways we can make this better, comments, you think this is a good podcast, please below, just, in the comment section, just write in there, hey, this was cool, or hey, this wasn't so cool. Whatever, right? Whatever you think. We want to hear about it because we want to make these better, right? So, guys, again, thank you very much for joining. Aaron and Akobe for putting the show together. You guys are amazing, man, because they actually have other stuff to do outside of this, besides this podcast. And I'll thank you for all of you for tuning in. Really, I really appreciate you. And one final shout out and plug in for my buddy Omar for help, just putting this music together for us. If you guys like the intro music, check out Omar El Gamal on SoundCloud. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Until next time, take care. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.